He was so when I was in Iraq, um, I was we run in 3-man teams over there, and I was in Kirkuk in Iraq, and we had like 3 or 4 EOD teams there, I think. And one of our other teams, their team leader, his name was John McCoy. He got just by working out on the base or whatever, he broke his thumb on accident, so he was kind of out of action, right? And his he had 2 team members. One was a staff sergeant who was already team leader qualified, and just because of manning or whatever, he was the second. And then my buddy Edison, he was their third, right? So John broke his thumb and he was out of commission for a little while. So they bumped up Matt to be the team leader because he was already a staff sergeant and team leader qualified. And it was they needed an extra person to cover down, and I was off for a couple days, so they bumped me over to his team. And the second day out, we were going down into in Kirkuk, and some bad stuff happened. He ended up taking an IED blast pretty much directly underneath him,
Jeez.
and I didn't respond correctly. I I got kind of caught up in the moment. Um, like there was a lot of stuff going on. He instantly his arm was blown off, and I remember it being very visceral and very. It's interesting when you see a a person that is that injured. You see a white bone against so much other stuff. Like I remember the whiteness of his bone being very distinguishable. Like
Yeah, it's in
I don't know.
focus.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And but I was so focused on his injury that I totally lost what's the word? My situational awareness of
Yeah,
everything else that was going on because we were um I was alerted to a threat in the crater where he had been blown up because there was some other things in the crater, and I was the second on the EOD team, and they pointed out to me, hey, what's that, what's that, what's that, and I was so discombobulated and so you know I don't know what the word is. It
shock.
was
I mean,
yeah, but I looked at it, and I looked at it and I honestly had no idea what I was looking at. I really didn't. Come to find out, it wasn't anything that could have hurt anybody, but I didn't know
yeah,
that. Come to find out, so just to give you some context, so what had happened was um, we were sent to investigate a T intersection, right,
mhm,
of dirt road, and the army had passed through there and they thought they saw an IED, so they threw out a chem light and then they left. Right, which is I can go on about why that's not a good idea, but anyway, they left. So we got dispatched out there, and we couldn't find anything after a long time searching. But there was a sign that had anti-American propaganda on it, which our SOP was to recover it. Right. So we drove the robot out and we pulled the sign out. And when we pulled the sign out, there was a lanyard attached to the post of the sign as we were pulling it out of the ground. And it was like, imagine like trying to think of a good way to describe it, but imagine like a plastic string, but a really thick one, right? A really
yeah,
thick plastic string, kind of like a surgical tube almost, but like if it's full and there's no
hmm
hollow center, right? so really thick. And then imagine at the end of that string, there's if you take like a really thick um, Ziploc bag and fold it over on each other, right? So you got like a real thick piece of plastic, right? And that's all we saw coming out of the ground as we pulled the sign out. And we're like, well, that's weird.
That's not natural or normal or yeah.
Right. So, but we didn't see anything else in the ground, right? I mean, obviously we're really cued in on it, right? It's
The way the
nothing
camera works.
normal. Yeah. And, you know, on those robots, the cameras aren't the greatest, but we could clearly see that there was something attached to it. We just couldn't really tell what was in the ground still, right? So he went out there to investigate it, and in the course of investigating it, the device went off. So what it was actually two improvised claymores that were connected by det cord,
Mm,
right? So I don't know if you're familiar with what det cord is, but
yeah.
imagine like a triple sized licorice, right? Like that thick, and it's in a cord, right? And it's full of explosives. So
Mhm.
basically, what it's meant to do is to ferry an explosive train from one area to another, so you can daisy different explosive charges via det cord.
Right.
Right? I mean, it has other uses as well, but that's one of the most common uses. And so it was connecting one improvised claymore to another improvised claymore. But what happened was, in the course of it exploding, the first improvised claymore went off, but the explosive charge actually cut the det cord before it could explode.
Mm.
Right, so that actually saved his life. Like he probably wouldn't be here if the second